everyone. We are gonna get started with the presentation. My name is Rachel Glickhouse, and I run the Documenting Hate project at ProPublica and do a lot of our collaborative work. For anyone who doesn't know, we're a nonprofit investigative newsroom based in New York. And today I'm going to show you this new tool that we released recently that is a tool for data projects, but it's also just a great project management tool that we hope will be helpful to other newsrooms. And it's all free and open source, so anybody can use it. So I'm just going to give you a quick briefing on it and then show you what it looks like. So I put a link in the chat to this landing page for Collaborate so that you can get all the sort of starting points to access it. But basically, we created this tool as an offshoot of something we had created for projects like Documenting Hate and Electionland, which are big collaborative projects that involve hundreds of journalists. So we decided that we were going to make the this kind of technology accessible for others so that they could work on similar projects and add and use their own data to do so. So basically the idea behind the tool is it's a collaborative tool. It's called Collaborate. And it allows many users to work in a shared data set. And so it's not for data analysis per se. So this is not something that can necessarily, it can't replace functions in Excel, for example. It's not something that you would use to do complex data crunching, but it is really useful to organize data and to manage every single point in that data set, depending on what you want to do with it. So on this page, we have the guide for Collaborate, which walks you through all the steps about how to launch it and how to use it. There are a couple different ways to launch it. The easiest way, I would say, is with Heroku. It's a service that launches apps, essentially. And you can use that to play around with it. If you're in a bigger newsroom or a newsroom that has developers, your developer can set up Collaborate on your own server, which is another option. And you can also launch it through Google Cloud as well. With that in mind, we have all of the code available on GitHub. So there's a link in here if that is useful to you. And we appreciate if you come across any problems that you can let us know, and you can do that right on GitHub. So with that, I'm just going to show you what it looks like once you set it up. You're given the option to add a data set. And so it works with a couple of different kinds. The first is with a CSV. So any spreadsheet, it just means that your data is complete in that data set. You're not going to add stuff. You can also use Google Sheets, both public and private. And ScreenDoor, which is a form building software. It's something that we've traditionally used, so that's just why it is built in. For ScreenDoor and Google Sheets, which also includes Google Forms, because when you create a Google form, it will spit out the answers into a sheet. So for both of these options, you can continuously add to your data in the original source, especially if it's a form, like a Google form, and you're continually receiving responses to it. These two options will let you add a data set that is continuously being updated, and it will update in Collaborate. So once you've picked one of these options and added a data set for the first time, just a heads up that there's a slightly different process for each, and there are instructions for setting up a private Google Sheet, which has a little bit more steps, but the other ones are basically just copying and pasting in or choosing a file. So once you have done that, I'm going to use a test project. It will take you to a place that lets you refine your data a little bit. So the nice thing about this is you can prioritize what parts of your project you want to focus on. So you can drag and drop the most important columns to the first 5. Those are the ones that are going to show up in your main view. So these are the ones that the areas you really want to take a look at from a bird's eye view. You can also change the data type if you'd like if it's a data field or a number field, but you don't have to do that. But one thing that's really nice to do is you can choose which fields you want to be searchable and filterable. So you'll typically probably want everything to be searchable, it just makes your life easier. But filters will let you slice and dice your data based on the columns you choose. And so it's recommended you pick ones that have a limited number of options, like a yes or no question, or something with 10 answers, just so you don't create a big mess on your main screen, but it should be something that you want to use to slice and dice your data. You also have the option through a setup process to redact data. If you'd like to redact personal information, if that is of interest, we have a process that you can do that. But typically when you come in for the first time, you're going to want to choose which fields you want in the front and which you want to filter. So after you've done that, it'll bring you to your project. And this is where you can start to do work on your data set. So the filters will show up on this right-hand column. So if I picked states so I can filter by state and see just the results from certain states. I also picked a yes or no question so I can filter by that. And you'll notice it changes the URL up here, so I can actually link to any of these different results if I'm working with other reporters in the newsroom, so it's easier for them to see what I'm seeing. It's only accessible to people who have a login. This is a private system, so only you decide who you want to give access to. So these are the filters that I requested in that previous page, but I also have a couple other filters that come into play. The first one is the status. So we have really built this software to focus on crowdsourced type investigations that really the status focuses on if it is being worked on, if someone's working on it, if it's been verified, that kind of thing. If you have a developer, there is a way that you can customize that, FYI, if you are able to work with a developer. But those statuses are going to get put into my filters here so that I can sort and see which ones are being worked on, which ones are available. And it really helps me to see, particularly in a big data set, what's going on. The other thing is I can assign each individual data point or tip, if this is a crowdsourced project, to different people. So I put in some names here, and all those names are going to appear in the filter column so that I can actually filter by the person who is working on each individual data point and see who's working on what. And that is easy to do. You can literally just type it into the box in that individual data point. And then the last thing is tags. So I can actually create tags to help sort of bucket my data based on anything that is useful for separating those out. So it could be the ways I'm reporting on these different tips, or it could be patterns I'm finding, or it could be geographic locations. It's basically just what is going to help you organize your data in different categories. So you can create those right in here where it says tags and add them to multiple different, multiple data points at once. And then anytime you create a tag, it will show up in this filter so that I can sort and look at just the ones that have been given that tag. And I can also combine filters. So if I want to see All of the tips that have come in through New York that have been given the blue tag, then I can sort by multiple types of tags to be able to sort of hone down the data. And just want to take you inside an individual data point. So this is a sort of a made up crowdsourced data set. And here is where I can add tags in an individual view. So I can add them right here by just typing it in. What is one I haven't used yet? Pink. And I can update the status. I can update the person that's assigned to. I can also add notes, which is really helpful, particularly for crowdsourced data sets, but really for any kind of project you're working on, to say what is going on with this thing. You can even put reporting notes in here if that's helpful. And it's a place that you can really keep things organized, particularly if you are doing reporting on each individual data point like you would for a crowdsourced data set. We also have this great thing that's a contact log, so I can keep track of every single time the reporter has reached out to the person in question, particularly useful for tipsters, right? If these are tips. I can put the name of the reporter, how they got in touch, email, phone, in person, and the date and time. And it will create a log so I can make a new one for every time there's been contact. And then the rest down here is just what's coming in from my original spreadsheet. This is the original data that's getting pulled in. Another thing I wanted to show you is that if you're an admin, you can see the history of each individual data point to see who has made changes and what those changes were. So that can be useful, particularly if you're working with a lot of people, just to make sure if you want to go back and check stuff. The other thing to be aware of, I'm going to go back to my main screen here, is you can make users that you want to give access to your projects. So you can do that just by, the easiest thing is literally just to make a new user. And you need to give them the username and password privately, and then they ask them to change, they will be asked to change their password when they log in for the first time. But basically this is the simplest way to set up a user, but you can also use Google sign-in if that is a way you'd like to set it up, so that everyone in your domain, you can make users based on, latimes.com, for example. And then you can give users different permissions, but basically the important thing is you are in control of who's getting access to your projects, so that it's only the specific people you want this to, excuse me, be accessible to. It is entirely up to you, but it is really targeted at being a private internal tool so that you can use it either with reporters in your newsroom or if you're collaborating with reporters in other newsrooms, so that you are working, this is really a back-end type software so that you can work together to do all this sort of back-end work. And also if you create a tag, excuse me, and you have a typo in that tag, you can go into the tag section and update it. They will all live in here, so you'll be able to see all of them. So you can add multiple projects. It's all just here at the top of your screen. You can configure those extra services like redaction. You can set that up later. And the other thing is you can also change those filters. You can go back and change those filters, and you can go back and change the column order anytime you want. You just have to hit refine, and it will let you do that. So we're using this at ProPublica we're actually going to start using it for all of our crowdsourced projects, so that it's just an easier way for us to have many different reporters and editors from our newsroom working in the same shared project. We're also using it for a couple collaborative projects with external newsrooms and students. We have a couple newsrooms, we know of a couple newsrooms that are using this for crowdsourced projects. which is what it's really was originally designed for, since Electionland and Documenting Hate rely on crowdsourcing. But it may also come in handy for other types of data projects that require a lot of organization and multiple people sort of working within that data set. So I think that is sort of the top line features that I wanted to show you. The guide here has a breakdown of all of the different ways that you can use it and how to use it. If you come across any problems, please let us know. You can actually submit a bug on GitHub, but if you want to walk through it, or if you have specific questions, I am happy to answer them. You should all have my email, but Daniel, I think, will send some stuff around after. So if you don't, it will be in there. And I'm happy to help you troubleshoot, or to, if you have questions about projects that you're working on and you're wondering if this would be useful, just let me know, and I am happy to talk through it with you and show you what might be most useful. So I think I'm going to stop there, and then if anyone has questions, I can answer them. Just open the chat. Okay, I think if we don't have any questions, then I will leave it there. And then I just encourage anyone who's interested can shoot me an email with questions, and I'm happy to chat one-on-one. Thanks all.